So, you wish to know the story of our people and our God, Yahweh. In the beginning, the world was nothing but chaos. The earth was formless and empty, and darkness was over the surface of the deep. But then, Yahweh said, "Let there be light." And then there was light. God created the world and everything inside of it. The land, the plants, the animals, the birds, the fish. But most importantly, He created the first man and woman, Adam and Eve. Our God blessed Adam and Eve with the land of Eden, fruitfulness, and His own presence. But unfortunately, Adam and Eve did not obey God, and so they were exiled from the Garden of Eden. And since then, all of us have been broken by sin. Sin is the brokenness in us, around us, and through us. The Lord felt sorry that He had created us, so He planned to start over. So what did He do? He flooded the entire earth. He did, however, choose one man to spare from the great flood, Noah, the one man on earth who had found favor with the Lord. After the flood dried up, the Lord blessed Noah, giving him the same blessings He had given to Adam and Eve. However, Noah and his descendants were still broken by sin, as could be seen spectacularly at the Tower of Babel, where all the people of the world gathered to build a tower to reach up to heaven. Yahweh knew that the people on this earth were still trapped by their own sin. But Yahweh was not done yet, because He called a new man, Abraham, to be the father of many nations. He also promised Abraham that through his descendants, all the nations of the earth would be blessed. Finally, Yahweh promised Abraham that He would give him a new land for his new nation. Sure enough, Abraham's family grew and grew and grew. Eventually, Abraham's family settled in the land of Egypt, and there was peace. But then, our people were enslaved by the tyrannical ruler of Egypt. Desperate, we called out to Yahweh to deliver us to His promised land. He heard us, and He rose up a new leader for our people, Moses. Moses led our people, the Israelites, out of Egypt and on a journey to the promised land. Then, when we were camping at Mount Sinai, Yahweh spoke. He spoke to Moses and reminded us that Abraham's covenant still applied to us. All we have to do is keep the covenant, and God will bless us with His presence. He also guided us in the creation of the tabernacle, a portable temple where God's presence resided. But unfortunately, we were unable to keep the covenant. We turned to other gods, and our God, Yahweh, was not pleased. As punishment for our disobedience, we had to wander in the desert for 40 years, with no sign of the promised land in sight. Unfortunately, during this time, Moses passed away, so God chose Joshua to replace him. With Joshua as our leader, we were able to conquer the land that was promised to Abraham, Israel. But we were unable to keep the covenant, and ended up in a vicious cycle of idolatry, oppression, and deliverance. The judges, our leaders of this time, grew increasingly corrupt, and soon the people had enough, and decided that they wanted a king to rule over Israel. Eventually, God told Samuel, the last of the judges, to anoint the first king of Israel, Saul. Saul was a very popular king, but unfortunately his pride got the best of him, and God saw that he was unfit to rule over Israel. So He told Samuel to anoint a new king, a young shepherd boy named David. Because the spirit of Yahweh had departed from Saul, Saul saw David as a threat and tried to kill him, but David refused to harm him in turn. And so, after the death of Saul, David became the king of Israel. Now, David's reign was one of the most successful periods of Israel's history. He conquered Jerusalem and turned it into Israel's capital. Try as he might, however, David wasn't perfect. His broken family life in particular weighed heavily on him throughout the end of his reign. But through it all, he remained loyal to Yahweh. And so, Yahweh made a new covenant with David, that someday a new king will come from his lineage and save his people from their sins. And he will be called the Messiah, the Anointed One of God. After David, his son Solomon succeeded him. When he became king, Solomon asked Yahweh for the gift of wisdom, and so he became the wisest king the world had ever seen. Solomon upgraded the tabernacle into a massive temple for God's presence to reside in. But eventually, his heart turned away from God and turned toward the hundreds of women he had married. Eventually, Solomon realized that everything he had, his wealth, his power, his wisdom, even his wives, were meaningless. And so, in a book that he wrote, the Book of Ecclesiastes, he wrote that the only thing that matters is walking with God every single day. This was not a message that Israel's future kings would follow. After Solomon's successor, Rehoboam, increased the workloads of the people of Israel, a new leader called Jeroboam led a revolt that split the kingdom in half, the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. And the leaders of both kingdoms sinned against the Lord greatly. So God sent messengers, the prophets, to speak to the leaders of Israel. They were told that if their people did not turn from their wicked ways, then their land would be devastated. Unfortunately, their words came true, as Israel was captured and its people exiled by the kingdom of Assyria. The people of Judah, meanwhile, were exiled by the kingdom of Babylon. Taken away from our homeland, we were sure that Yahweh had abandoned us. But the Lord was not done with us yet, because the prophets saw that while we were being taken from our homeland, the Lord's presence came with us as well into exile. Not only that, but the Lord also promised that one day he would replace our heart of stone and give us a heart of flesh, a new attitude. Finally, after 70 years in exile, Persia conquered Assyria and Babylon and let us go free to our homeland. When we returned, we rebuilt the temple, the city, and its walls. However, the Lord's presence has not returned yet to the temple. And so, here we are, waiting for the Messiah who will come and fulfill the new covenant.